High spots and cheap pops, ladies and gentlemen, it is me, the SSV, Silicon Valley, and I'm with my main man, Vladi. For me, the big story was the final conclusion to the career of Jay White in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He lost a couple weeks ago to Galileo, and seemingly was no longer allowed to wrestle in Japan. It was a loser leaves Japan, and this was a loser leaves New Japan. Eddie Kingston isn't in New Japan. He wrestles people in New Japan. That was weird. But I guess they had to do something. It was just a really weirdly done. We'll just have Galileo be the guy, but I guess they had booked that match with Eddie Kingston prior, so they had to kind of spin their wheels, and that was what they came up with. He couldn't wrestle in Japan, and then he couldn't, then he couldn't wrestle, and then the loser leaves New Japan or can't wrestle in New Japan anymore. Eddie Kingston did a much better job of putting it over than the idea actually was, so good for him. But Eddie Kingston beats Jay White, and Jay White, who was the top heel in New Japan since 2000, I would say mid 2018, won his first IWGP championship in 2019, beating Tanahashi. He essentially took over for Kenny Omega as being the top heel Gaijin when Kenny left for AEW. Jay White had an impressive run as the Bullet Club leader. He was the longest reigning Bullet Club leader of all time. I just want to tip my scales to the guy. Nothing but passion. Great match after great match. Great promo after great promo. And that certainly was no exception in his last words said to the New Japan crowd. Got very gracious at the end of the night after he lost to Galileo with New Japan. And he almost said thank you, but he stopped himself. He said, "You're welcome." So I just want to give a big shout out to Switchblade Jay White. It was a great era, the Switchblade era, but it is no longer New Japan. Perhaps the night after WrestleMania, WWE will finally get a taste of the Switchblade era, as many people speculating that Jay White is on his way to WWE. Vladi, I know you probably don't know Jay White quite as much as I do. Any feeling on his potential of coming to WWE?
He would go to AEW just to sit on the bench of Miro. Yeah, I think he's going to WWE. It'd be almost foolish to even consider AEW at this point. You know what? It's intriguing. Like, do they go all in and say, have him attack Cody after WrestleMania? Basically, old, Bullet Club ties, if you will. Is that too big of a star for Jay White to go after, or is this a situation where perhaps, I'm not sure how bad AJ Styles' injury is. Is he going to be around by WrestleMania, or is that a total non-starter? I don't know. But having his talent, his ability to cut promos, you can't just have him coming in there and then going against Johnny Gargano right to begin with, right? That would be, sort of a lost moment. But I'm thinking perhaps he goes after Cody.
So kind of do a Tony Khan thing where you bring him in to face the top baby, whoever one of the top champions, give him some shine, introduce him who he is. I don't know if Triple H gives him that ball that early. I think AEW certainly would. I don't think WWE does, because Jay White, you have to understand, he's not even Kenny Omega in terms of a name. And, Kenny Omega outside of the wrestling world is a complete unknown. So I don't think that's the way it goes. I think they might start it out where they try to build him up organically and see where he goes. I don't think he's given the keys to the kingdom. Because he's not even as well known as AJ Styles was. So I don't think
it's true. It is.
And there's no connection, and there's very little connection between Cody and Jay White. Omega and Jay White might be a different thing, but not Cody and Jay White. Cody and Jay White didn't have much interaction. And also Cody,
let me ask you this:
Bullet Club, but it wasn't like Cody. Cody was never a leader. He tried to be in a brief storyline with Kenny in 2018, but overall, I don't know if that would be the way to go.
Let me ask you this, because, we were discussing some of the rumors about Kenny Omega perhaps leaving AEW and going to greener pastures to WWE. If Kenny Omega looks to come to WWE and Cody is the world champion while that is happening, do you think they would consider immediately Omega versus Cody?
Yes, that would be, I think they would build it up, but I think there would be interaction. And I think Kenny would probably have an opportunity with Cody at a second tier pay-per-view, like a Backlash or a, whatever the case may be, Battleground or whatever one of the ancillary pay-per-views.
Right. Okay. But you think that could definitely be in play, because I think you can't really mess around with that. You don't want him starting necessarily to go against, I don't know, like I wouldn't put Omega against Gunther at this moment, because you're building up Gunther to this like monster sort of thing. But he and Kenny, Omega and Cody have the history there, both for EVPs of the competition, if you will. And that just sort of writes itself.
I got to be honest with you. I don't know if Kenny and the Bucks translate well in WWE land. I don't think their promos, the way they cut promos. Kenny could if he's under.
No, you're right about that.
If Kenny takes the direction from certain people in WWE, maybe. But Kenny left to his own devices, unless he's working heel, his promos might not get over. They might be a little over people's head, or maybe sometimes goofy. I mean, Kenny's all over the place with his promos often. And I don't know if that
to rein him in.
They'd have to rein him in pretty substantially. And and again, but I haven't seen him work in a while. I mean, I don't know if his promo style, which worked beautifully in New Japan, I don't know, and okay and pretty well in AEW as a heel, but I don't know if it translates over to WWE. But it's not about what I think. It's about, does Triple H think that he can make him a world champion caliber guy, Kenny Omega? I don't know, because now I don't know if Triple H thinks that. I don't know if Triple H sees Kenny Omega as the legend that many people, including myself, thinks he can be. So that's it. I don't know, but the weird thing is, I guess that Cal Leo is going to be the leader. Like, who's going to be the leader of the Bullet Club? El Fantasma is great. You also have my buddy Ace Austin. He's a possible guy that could wound up be a leader of the Bullet Club in some capacity in the near future. Bullet Club, I mean, they don't have Tama Tonga. They don't have Carl Anderson or Gallows. They don't have Jay White. This is as lost of a Bullet Club as we've seen. They've been around for a decade. It might be sunset pretty soon for the Bullet Club, it looks like, which is interesting, with Jay White leaving on his way in all likelihood to WWE. I will say this, despite my moment in the Valley with Kenny, I think Kenny overall will probably in all likelihood go back to either New Japan or try to do something else. I don't know if WWE is where he goes. Then again, everybody wants a WrestleMania moment. It's like playing for the Yankees going to WWE. You can shit on it, big business, whatever, corporate vultures, as someone would say, all that. But the fact of the matter is, WWE just does certain things, particularly production-wise, way up here, and everyone else, including AEW, is down here and beyond. So that probably, and also the money and the bigger platform, those things are something that Kenny probably wouldn't mind too much. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. And then, when you get back to the original question about Kenny and or the Bucks, I don't think the Bucks translate well there to that crowd, honestly.
And they're kind of hackish.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's cookie cutter at this point. It's always throwing a basketball at the testicles of Brandon.
Really, since Kenny lost to Hangman, it's been lost.
Yep.
And thank you so much for watching High Spots and Cheap Pops. This is Silicon Steve Valli, and for Vladi Dadi, we want to thank you so much. And hit the subscribe button. Here endeth the lesson.